Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, we are here once again with another episode of the CryptoManiacs podcast, always streaming for your viewing pleasure on Vim and a whole bunch of Web 2 stuff, but we won't even get into them. They get enough shine. We're back with our favorite guest. I think this is his 17th appearance in the show or something like that. I don't know. I can't keep up. Task. What do you think?
I don't know, but actually, he's not the same guest he was in the past. I was on the core developer call yesterday, and Brian was anointed by none other than Block Trades as our resident Lightning expert. He had a question about Lightning Network, and he asked Brian, and Brian gave him the full 411 on what's going on with Lightning. So it's very rare that we get a expert in something that is the resident expert in something on the show, and we have Brian now. So, Brian, what you been up to? You've been busy. We see your posts and stuff like that. So it looks like you've been hacking away at a little code there here and there.
I am in a productive code generating zone at the moment, and I'm feeling good about it. Yes.
Before we get started, let's get the politics out of the way, if you will. You have a proposal.
Yes.
It is going live tomorrow or today?
At midnight tonight, I hope.
Midnight, so tomorrow. And you're just shy of the level. So if everybody would go to Peak D, please review the proposal. And if you feel so inclined, which we feel you should, please support Brian's proposal if you have not done so.
Yes, number 222 is the proposal.
222. In podcasting boost parlance, 222 is called the row of ducks boost because it looks like a row of ducks. And so my proposal is 222. I was quite pleased.
And if you could give a 30 or 45 second synopsis, what is the proposal? What are you asking for, looking to do?
I am carrying on with the Lightning to Hive bridge, but the next bit, and I've been sort of gradually increasing the amount of time I ask for. This one's for a 6-month block, because what I'm going to do is I want to open source what I'm running, and I want to make it runnable by others, not many others. It doesn't need to be run by thousands of people, 2, then 3, then 4, as the volume grows. But I want it to be decentralized. I don't want to be the guy running the only Hive to Lightning bridge. So when somebody comes and looks at us like, the Americans with their dreams of legislating, they're going to say, who operates this Hive Lightning bridge? How does it work? And they're going to go, it's this semi-anonymous account and this semi-anonymous account and this and who's doing the KYC? What's KYC? But that bit of work is, I think it's the most challenging technical thing I've taken on yet, but I feel I can do it. So that's what the next 6 months. I'm going to add all sorts of features along the way, sort of stuff that the users will see. But behind the scenes, it's getting it ready to have other people run the stuff that I've got running on a laptop behind me. And that's something, to be honest, I've never written code for other people. I coded as a kid and then I coded through university, but I was writing programs that I ran. It's a whole world of difference when you have to write documentation and get Dockers running. And, I want it to be as simple as Docker compose up and then you'll be running one of these bridges. It'll be a little bit harder than that. It won't be the easiest thing in the world, but I will find, I know already a few individuals who said to me, yeah, I want to run that too. So we'll see.
Excellent. Before going into some of your stuff, we are going in a couple weeks to have Ho on the show for the first time. And you've been on the last few core developer calls. You obviously have a vested interest running your projects. And I just wanted to ask you or get your insight into what you see now that you're kind of evolving yourself with the core development team a little bit, even if it's just a tie-in, what do you think about what Block Trades is doing with Half? If you've looked at some of that code, what with some of the things Hou and some of the other people are working on, how do you feel from the technical infrastructure at the base level? How do you feel Hive stands now that you've been involved with those guys a little bit?
I'm showing up to the meetings because I want to know what's coming, and I read all the Block Trades updates and whatever everybody else puts out, and I have a great deal of confidence in what they're doing and the direction they're going, because they're keeping it at an abstract level of how do we make this more efficient. We're already miles away. We're still miles away from our structural limit. Like the Splinterlands how often I don't play. There's like a busy section at the end of their
Every
tournament
2 weeks,
period.
yeah, right, yeah.
That causes a blip, but it still doesn't stress the chain. But I like the way that Block Trades and all the others who are involved in the core team are thinking about how do we make this more efficient? How do we make it run on not just the same hardware we're running now, but even lower hardware? And yes, I've looked at Half, and in fact, I was a big proponent of Imwatsi, who's also working on a funded proposal. And one of the things he's put into his he's been the main guy helping Block Trades and Block Trades core team on sort of being a user of Half. And it's a bit shaky at the moment, but it's getting much more solid. But PodPing, which is my other sort of side project, that is in a Half, and the goal, all this sort of means is we send out these pod pings. They're ephemeral. We don't really ever we look back an hour at most. It's like a podcast updated. Okay, we might need to replay an hour, but what Half does is lets us run a very compact, not very high spec server that will store them all, or store 6 months worth. And then we can query that database in ways that has never been thought of. So I'm looking forward to getting that. Imwatsi's done a little bit of that, but with the next changes and Dockerization that Dan was talking about last night, yeah, we're going to have a pod ping Half server. It won't have to have, because it's all about how much live SSD memory do you need on a server. And as soon as someone tells you need 2 terabytes of SSD, you're looking at hundreds of dollars a month for that server. Whether you or you have to buy a $5,000 machine, one way or the other. But as soon as he tells me, oh yeah, you should be able to do that with 20 or 30 or 40 gigabytes of SSD, well, I have to have 470 gigabytes of SSD just to hold the Bitcoin blockchain for my Lightning node. So, but PodPing, we should be able to run it with Half on a $30 a month server. That is going to be really interesting, because that means then we can have 3 of them. It's economic to do these things.
Yeah, and I heard it mentioned yesterday, and for those of us, including myself, who don't know, maybe John knows the answers. Could you explain Docker to us and what that is and what service? Because Block Trades mentioned that they're working on it. What does it do, and
what is Docker? Docker is just a piece of software that it blew. When I got back into coding a year and a half ago with all this stuff, somebody showed me Docker, and my mind went, phew. Docker is a way of writing a script that pulls everything you need from the internet to run a complete machine inside another machine. And so instead of sort of, on your Windows machine, you install an application, it goes into the programs folder, and it kind of lives alongside all the other applications, and then you install something else later and something breaks and you never quite know where you are, and the system's getting heavier and heavier and weighed down. Well, what Docker does is it actually starts from a blank machine, and it just downloads everything it needs. It compiles whatever software you're developing, and it just puts it in a little box running inside this thing called Docker, and you can run multiple Dockers on one computer, and the technical parlance is virtualization. You have a virtual computer, but it just works when you get it right, and when somebody writes the right Docker, it's called a Docker compose file that brings all of this together, and it's like 17 lines of code, and it just pulls something from this place and pulls the whole of Unix from somewhere else, combines them all together, and splits out a thing that just runs. And when you get it right, it's very, very satisfying. But it takes months. It takes months to build these so that they run just right. But once they're running, they're really, really cool.
And what was that applying to? Was that applying to Hive, or was it applying to Half, or what was it specifically meaning?
Various bits of Hive are already Dockerized. You can download this Docker image and just run it from this Docker thing. Half, he's specifically talking about getting Half to run in that way. So at the moment, you can run it with an install script, which sort of does install it on the base machine. But if you want to run, what he envisages is you'll have a shared database, and then the database is in one Docker. So that's your Docker database. But then you can have multiple other Half applications running on the same machine, all using that one database. Very efficient. And if one of them breaks, it doesn't break the other ones. If you want to restart one or upgrade one, the others just don't notice. Everything is compartmentalized. And it's basically a fantastic way of organizing multiple applications running on one machine or across many machines. You can there's even bigger stuff if you want to run clusters of Dockers and have automatic failover. If one machine goes down, it switches to another. All stuff I'm trying to learn.
Okay, for us novices, with Half, you mentioned the benefit and the applicability to Podping. What are, if you could just throw out, would this serve something like Leo Finance? What would be some of the other use cases for something like App? Who would be interested in using what's there?
Okay, the core of Hive's social media site is a very, very big database. So we've got the blockchain, which is a lot of data, but you don't need to put that all in fast memory. That can be on slow disks. But the data that's currently being accessed, the recent posts, how many likes they have, how many upvotes they have, how many comments they have, those comments, all of that has to be stored in memory. And what the way Hive works is that it just gets this stream, the blockchain. If you look at that Hive, what's the thing called with the nice little blobs? Hive is pretty, I think, .com. Each bit of data, every time you click something, every time you write a comment, it goes past in the blockchain. But then at the moment, what happens is the various API servers and other servers, they keep track of all of that and put it all in a huge giant database. And they maintain multiple copies of this database all over the place. What Half lets you do is say, I am not interested in social posts. I am only interested in custom JSONs that start with pp_ for Podping. I am only interested in the custom JSONs for the game I've just designed. I don't want to store in my expensive SSD memory. I don't want to store John G. Olson's admittedly fantastic latest post. I just don't need to pay someone to rent a server with an SSD that's 2 terabytes to hold your latest posts and the number of clicks it has. So I'll just store the stuff I want. And that's what Half does. It compartmentalizes. And then when you're writing an application to sort of look at this, instead of interacting directly with the blockchain, you're interacting just with a database created from what you've filtered out of the whole blockchain. And you don't need to touch Hive. You don't need to know anything about it. And this is what Dan Blocktrades has said all along, is this then stops it being a skill that you have to think of as a blockchain skill, a blockchain coding skill, and you become just you can just write applications against a database, which is sort of what 99% of web development actually is today. Leo Finance might not be the best example because they really are heavily into the core social features of Hive. But it's for subsets of that.
Maybe gaming and things of that nature.
Definitely anything like a Splinterlands or a junior Splinterlands. This is how you do it. Or and like I say, we will use it for podping because there's never been an open database of how often different podcasts update themselves. Nobody's ever stored that information. We're storing it today as custom JSONs in Hive, but accessing those is bespoke. You have to build bespoke code, but Half will give us the sort of the hard part, the bit that deals with the blockchain, and then we just get a database. So I'm really interested in that popping out the end. Yeah.
Okay, one other question about the core development call, then we'll get on to something I want to ask you about Podping, which I think is very important. But Block Trades made mention about some feature that can increase the block size. And he said it's not something to worry about now. He doesn't anticipate the need for a few months down the road. What was he referring to? Because you said earlier, we're not even close to the scaling capability or the output capability that we potentially have. And block size, you start to throw that out there, that gets into the Bcash Bitcoin fight from 5 years ago. What can you explain what's going on here and why people should not be terrified?
I'm not the world's best person to do this because I'm not deep in the core but
Okay, fair enough.
I would say to Hive, block size is largely irrelevant.
Okay.
We don't get close to filling blocks. They come by every 3 seconds. So the worst that happens if you don't get in this one is you get in one 3 seconds later. And for very, very few of our applications, 3 seconds matters. The other stuff that they're doing to reduce latency, I've read his posts. Again, that's also going to stop the need to worry about which block your code gets in. I'll give you one example of how Hive works that matters to me. So for my Lightning Hive gateway, people send me Hive. I receive Hive. It comes with a Lightning invoice, and I pay the Lightning invoice. Now, I want to be really sure that I have received the Hive. Now, the correct way to do that is not to wait 3 seconds to see when it first appears on the chain, but to wait 40 seconds to a minute when it's a confirmed block. After talking with Block Trades Dan some time ago, he kind of explained to me what it would take to beat that system. And for 20 Hive, nobody's going to do it. So I stopped caring. I just take the head block. And if you want to defraud me, if somebody wants to find a way, that's the way you can do it. But the maximum amount you'll get is 150,000 sats. It's $45 or whatever it is today. Go ahead, make my day. If you can do that, I think it means corrupting at least 2 or 3 of the witnesses, timing it so your block goes into a block of a witness who's on your payroll, who will then revert. It just block size. All these notions of block size, like the fight that Bitcoin and BCH and all of that stuff, it's not the same for us. We're not the same.
And it's because of the speed that we have.
It's because of the speed and because of delegated proof of stake, because we have 20 elected witnesses that are elected with our vote, and we can remove one. This is what I keep saying to people about my Lightning gateway. We'll come back to Podping. I won't, but just a short thing. It's an honor-based system, okay? It's not 100% trustless. People send me money, Hive or Lightning, and I send them Lightning or Hive. And for 3 to 40 seconds, I hold the money. There's no real way to make this totally trusted. But as I've said in many places, my reputation on Hive is worth tens of thousands of dollars to me. There is no way I will blow that to diddle somebody out of $45. It's just not going to happen. I move heaven and earth. And in fact, the only significant mistakes my code has made has been to overpay someone. I've overpaid two people. That something went wrong. CoinGecko went down. I didn't get a rate. My machine went bananas in a condition called a race condition. And I sent 20 Hive payments of like 0.45 Hive to somebody instead of one. And he sent it right back to me. He said, I've been overpaid. And I like then turned around and sent him back 10 Hive and said, thank you for helping me find a bug. It's not worth my reputation to do anything else but make people happy. And that's a big deal on a chain where we all have real reputations, even if we don't know people's faces. I don't know what Oz Bitbank looks like, but I trust him because he's got a reputation on the chain. He's done right by the chain for many years, and he wouldn't throw that away because it's worth more than almost any amount that he could scam out of somebody.
Yeah,
it's funny you mentioned that because I'm I'm going to say, hey, what about Twitter? Because I know you're just a raving fan of Twitter these days. But like,
the question of the week is Brian allowed on Twitter this week, or is he not?
I don't know. I don't know if
the features or all of the features.
No, I'm still suspended permanently.
But you can go into the rooms.
No, that actually stopped after I did that one call with 3Speak. I can no longer enter spaces.
So there's no Brian of London 2 account coming, or no? Or...
what's my incentive? To make Twitter a better place.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
well, that was my point. I was going to say, like, I personally, and this is funny because I being in social media marketing and internet marketing, like our reputation online, we're supposed to care what our Twitter followers think. We're supposed to care what YouTube thinks. Like we really want to interact with Facebook. I could care less, but I do care about my Hive reputation. Like you said, heaven and earth.
Real money.
Right.
It's actually, it would be an enormous financial loss for me to lose my reputation on Hive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if somebody went out there and proved that I had defrauded them of $1,000, I would never recover from that. And it just, I can't imagine the amount of money that would have to be on the table to convince me to take it.
I had a really interesting kind of what you said about, I don't know what Ospit Bank looks like, but I trust them. We were doing Hive Pay and it's working great, but every now and again there's a hiccup, just like, it's not 100% trustless, obviously, but there was an issue where someone did a transfer or something, and this whale on Hive got like 1,000 or 1,500 Hive. Like, you think that if you go to like Facebook, someone sent you $1,500, are you going to return it? Probably not. But on Hive, this guy didn't have to. He used it just like we overpaid him. What did he do? He sent it right back. That's
what's right? Look, I keep my live account for the Lightning thing. It has about 200 Hive and 200 HBD on it. I'm probably going to have to. That's what is sitting in an account that's controlled by my bot. So I consider that to be at risk, because if I mess up, the worst thing that can happen is it will just, and Hive is so fast. That's the other thing, is before you know it, you've drained $200 out. It would take, if somebody sent me some Lightning that was worth $15 and I just made a mistake and it just started paying $15, it would be gone in a minute and a half. I'd drain through $200. So, but am I convinced that everybody will send it back? No, I'm trying not to make mistakes. But I also feel that most of the people using the service have reputations as well. Right. There's something about what we have built on Hive with this combination of I don't need to see people's passports. I don't need to KYC them, but I do trust reputations, and you can just go look at somebody's history on the chain. And I mean, one of the things I instituted, there's a blacklist of accounts misspellings of bit tracks and those dodgy. I use that. So if somebody tries to send Lightning to one of those accounts, my machine will stop. And I can review it. And if somebody contacts me and says, no, I really did want to send this junk account, okay, it's your money, but my machine won't automatically send it on. Back to PodPing.
I love what you're building, but one thing I want to get out to the audience, and we've discussed it in the past, but I'd like you to kind of break it down again. And you did say this on the CTT broadcast you were on a few weeks ago. And this deals with PodPing and what PodPing can do for Hive. And I don't think the average internet user understands. And I'll use the term you described. Basically, what PodPing is a internet protocol, and you're building a protocol for the internet. Could you explain to the listeners what a protocol is and how important potentially PodPing can be and what it can do for Hive being a protocol for podcasting 2.0?
Yeah. Okay. So what a protocol means is it's a way of communicating that is agreed upon by many parties. Okay. So Morse code, that was a protocol. Everybody looked at, they split the alphabet into these dots and dashes, and a wide array of people agreed this is the protocol of how we're going to communicate on a wire that can just have a flashing light going on, off, on, off. That was the protocol. When we had telephone, they sort of agreed on a protocol of what are the voltages that are going to work from America and then eventually across to Europe. How are we going to connect these wires together? That sort of protocol level. And with the internet, we have protocols like
TCP/IP.
TCP, Transmission Control Protocol, IP, Internet Protocol. HTTP is a protocol. It's a way of structuring the answers that one computer uses the base protocol, which is the IP stack, to send a message, and then what does the message look like that comes back? And it's an agreed upon protocol, an agreed upon way of talking. Now, email is a protocol. Many thousands of different types of servers can handle email. Many thousands of different types of client have been written to handle email. They're all different, but they all speak the same language and they're all interoperable. There is only one Facebook website. They've got various APIs that let you get a little bit of information out of it, but they got in huge trouble by opening up too much of their information. You can't directly access the database of Facebook. Hive, on the other hand, is an open protocol. It's an open way of interacting with that kind of social data. It's more of a protocol. Now, it's kind of sort of limited to our sort of Hive group. But what PodPing looks like it can become is a message bus. Now, email is a messaging system, but I send an email and it goes from me to you. Now, if I've got a whole list of email addresses, I can send one email and it will go to 1,000, 10,000, 1 million addresses. But it's kind of, we know it's slow and broken. Email is it's terrible. It's getting blocked everywhere. It's filled with spam. And what we needed was another system to be a way of one computer saying, hey, something has happened. And anybody who's interested picking up. Now, that the computer that's sending the signal does not need to know who's interested. Like with email, you need to know, who do I send this email to? We wanted to have a place, like a board, where you could just stick up a notice and say, hey, I've updated my podcast, and have one board for the whole world. Now, Twitter could have been that board, but Twitter is censorious. If my podcast was linked to my Twitter account, suddenly I would no longer be able to announce that my podcast has changed because my Twitter account has been deleted. Hive doesn't have that problem. You can pod ping no matter, we can't stop you pod pinging. Now, if someone were to span the system, we would just ignore them. But Hive becomes an open message board that anybody can look at. And we're starting to see apps needing to look at it. Now, at first, the way it's operating at the moment, individual apps, like a podcast app on your phone, I don't know, I won't be able to show you because it'll blur, but I have like every podcast app known to man from Podcasting 2.0. There's dozens of them. They don't need to look at Podping at the moment, okay? Because Podping sends out a signal that says this podcast is updated. That is picked up by the Podcast Index, which is an indexing site, and that then updates itself. And all of those apps talk to the Podcast Index. But what's coming now, what we've been playing with for a few weeks, and in fact, I think No Agenda, the No Agenda podcast, which is one of the top 10 podcasts in the world, it's not famous, it's infamous, but it has many more than 1 million listeners. It's going to use this notification system to announce when they start recording the show this Thursday. And 2 apps, Podverse and CurioCaster, I think, they are now set up to watch the Hive blockchain, and they will get a notification when Adam Curry says, I'm going live. That notification will contain a link to the RSS feed, the home of the podcast. In that RSS feed will be what's called a live item. In the live item will be a link to the live stream. And so those 2 apps will then give their users a play button that says listen live. Now think about this. That's not very interesting for anybody who's used Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or Twitch or Vim for the last 10 years. We've all been doing that. But these are 2 different independent apps plugging into an open system, an open protocol, running on hardware, Hive, that we know is sustained by people who are rewarded for sustaining it. Therefore, it has a future. It has an economic reason to exist. And right now it's 2 apps, but it'll be 3 and 4. Once we prove this with No Agenda, and I've been talking to the guys from Vim. I'm hopefully tomorrow night we're going to have like a behind the scenes meeting about this, and I want guys from Vim to join that because I want Vim to start doing this because they've got all the parts. They go live. They already talk to Hive, so writing a custom JSON when they go live is trivial. And suddenly there will be 2 video capable apps that will show you a Vim live stream with a notification. Now,
so if I can jump in, let me see if I follow this. So if I have one of these 2 podcasting apps that you just mentioned on my phone, and I'm a subscriber to Adam's podcast, and I'm sitting there and I'm on my phone texting or doing whatever, and all of a sudden he goes live and he hits a button that says live, a notification is sent through the Hive blockchain that is being read by Podping, that is then tied to this app, one of the apps that I'm using, that will notify me. And all of a sudden I get a notification, Adam's show, No Limit, is now live, and click here to listen. Boom.
Live. Boom. Now, and what we're building here.
And before you get into that, that does not exist in podcasting, you're saying right now. It doesn't
exist anywhere. It's all walled gardens. YouTube will tell you when a YouTuber is live. Twitch will tell you when a Twitch is live.
Gotcha. I see
Facebook
what you're saying.
will tell you when a Facebooker is live. None of them will show you live notifications from one of the others. Okay?
Gotcha.
And it's
so
not
what you're saying is when Adam goes live, anybody can read that who is reading the Hive blockchain.
Correct.
Any application.
And this is the way that the open infrastructure and the rest of us. Okay, I don't think Apple's going to build this into their app very soon. I don't think Google's going to build it into their Play app very soon. Don't care. Spotify will be caught in a Spotify will be caught on the edge because they don't really have this capability. It's not like YouTube has got this and Apple have they're not really the content guys. Are Spot enough big enough to ignore this? If lots of podcasts start podcasting live, and by the way, podcasting does not mean audio only, it's video too. Your shows all become video podcasts on 3Speak. Now, hopefully I'm going to get Vim to start doing this soon as well, because Vim doesn't have an iPhone app but here I've got 2 iPhone and Android apps ready to be able to show subscribers on Vim a notification when their favorite Vim channels go live. That's never been possible in a cross-app way. And we're going to go to Rumble and to Getter and all of these other platforms. If they are smart, if they understand, this is how we beat YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We don't beat them by Rumble trying to grow to the size of YouTube. It isn't going to. But if Rumble sends live notifications via Hive and 4, 5, 6 different podcast apps, any one of which a user can be using, can show a notification, this is how we win. We deliver a piece of functionality that does not exist in the open source world today. It just doesn't. There's no cross-app, cross-platform notification system for going live. It's unbelievable this doesn't exist.
And because all of this is going through Hive, none of this can be shut down.
That's right. It's like, if Alex Jones gets himself look, he can use some of the infrastructure that Podcast Index have got at the moment, but at the base of it, all you have to do is write a custom JSON. And the software to do this is on a GitHub repository. Docker, actually, it's nicely Dockerized. You just run it, and you just put in your own Hive account. You need, like, there's one main account that's doing most of the pod pinging, and I think it's got about 3,500 Hive power on it at the moment, but it's constantly at 100% resource credits. I could probably drop it, but if you're just putting out 4 or 5 notifications a week, you need $3 of Hive or $5 of Hive, because we know Hive is so efficient at this stuff.
So you mentioned the last time you were on, the idea was to give this some time to run, not the notifications specifically, since that's obviously a new feature, but just the pod ping in general. And you had a few indexers on board. They started to utilize it. Has that grown? Have you started to get more indexing sites or indexers logging on?
It's the hosts, actually. And yes, there have been a couple more that have joined. The volume is creeping up. I mean, it's still at about, I don't know, we put out, I think, about 4,000 custom JSONs a day, which is something like between 10 and 18,000 different shows that notify of an update. And it's rolling along, and the people using it love it. And the apps using it love it. I think that the live feature is going to blow everybody's mind. That will bring more to it, because it's like the existing podcasting way of, have you changed your feed yet? Have you changed your feed yet? That works. It's worked for 20 years since podcasting was invented. So there's a massive inertia to switch. A few visionaries and some of the more, better forward-looking hosts are doing it. 3Speak does it. But this live notification thing, I think it's going to be it's going to light a spark, because they can't there's no way to do this except podping. Nobody's ever proposed a kind of a system that's got a chance. And the reason it's got a chance is because we're not having to pay for all the infrastructure, because our custom JSONs represent 0.16% of all the custom JSONs on Hive. We're a blip in the Splinterlands, monster. And even Splinterlands isn't the whole traffic of Hive. So the point is, all these other uses, my Hive Lightning work. That's another reason for Hive to exist. Podping is a reason for Hive to exist. All the different games, all the CryptoManiacs, all what you're doing with CTP and all of that stuff. Each one of those stands alone, but together they add tremendous value, and that's why I have. I live in a world where I interact in a world of Bitcoin maximalists, who are really toxic.
I was waiting for this.
They are.
You keep doing that, your head's going to look like us pulling your hair out.
No. You know what? I have no more F's to give for Bitcoin maximalism. I just keep building myself, and I think a few of them have noticed what I'm doing, and they disapprove intent. Because what are you doing, turning Lightning into shit coins? And I don't care, because I know that holding Hive is so much easier than holding Lightning. I was away for a couple of weeks, and then I came back. I spent the first 4 days after I got back doing almost nothing but trying to push sats through channels to move beads on a freaking abacus to keep my Lightning node from it's the most mind-crunchingly horrible. It's like, and if I send it via this thing, and then I do 2 hops here, and I come back, well, I've paid 300 parts per million, and how much will the fees be if I open a new channel on the main? It's like, it's so horrible to deal with. And these people think that the whole world is going to have a node each. And they've done the maths, actually. And if the whole world were to have a Lightning node,
right,
basically Bitcoin, I think, Bitcoin would just cease to exist, because just to open all the channels necessary to get everybody on Lightning would take from here to eternity. The Bitcoin is fundamentally constrained, and even Lightning is also fundamentally constrained. It's like I keep having to do Bitcoin transactions to open channels. And I now know that the correct time for me to do those is Saturday or Sunday morning in Israel, because I have to watch the mempool when it's busy or not, because I don't want to pay. I want to pay the minimum. And it's like, the idea, and the sense of joy when you do a transaction and you set the fee to be one sat per VByte. That's the way you do it. That's the minimum fee you can set. And the joy when it goes through 8 minutes later in the next block, like, wow, I won the lottery. And here I am. I get Lightning sent to my system, V for V.app. I get Lightning sent, and 3 seconds later, somebody's got Hive. And they didn't have to worry about whether they had inbound liquidity to their Hive account. They don't have to think about it. They can go to bed at night not worrying that their Hive can't be received because they don't have sats in a channel with magnetron's node. That's what I did. So,
do you think this will ever end, this maximalist attitude that Bitcoiners have? Like, do you think it's ever gonna, like, will they ever admit, like, hey, you know what, maybe our thing is not really
well,
the best
as an extension on what John said, let's give an example. Have you gotten through to Adam Curry yet, or is he still a Bitcoin maxi?
No, he has gone through an evolution, because
See, John, it's
really
possible.
He truly understands what Hive does in regard to podping. He's still not. He doesn't really understand what I'm doing yet with the gateway thing, but podping is the thing that has done it for him, because he knows Bitcoin, Ethereum, none of the other proof of work chains for sure can do what podping does at an economic cost. Can't be done. And he does also understand that we're using a bunch of hardware that we don't have to pay every cent for it. We don't have to be the sole owners of it. Because that's actually, they were about to start building podping and paying for it, renting it all from Linode. And they were looking at $1,000, $2,000 a month to run a similar system to podping in perpetuity. And I said to them, and I got the first money I ever got from the DHF was for Podping, and I wasn't funded for the whole time. I think in the end it turned out to be about 7,000 HBD, most of which I put into Hive and powered up. And it's still there. It's worth more than 7,000 today. I paid people with it. That $7,000 is all we're going to need for the foreseeable future in terms of Hive power to run Podping globally. But that's an investment. It's not even an outgoing. It's capital. It's capital that we could take back. I mean, I could, it can be pulled out. There's nothing like us. There's nothing like, and all that Bitcoin maximalism means to me is you have not got the imagination to search through. And I must admit, there's a heck of a lot of crap out there. There's a lot of tethers. There's a lot of trons. There's a lot of Anchor Protocol 20%
Luna.
and Luna, Terra. There is an enormous amount of that. Probably the majority. It is scammy and shit. I firmly believe Hive is different. But I don't. People have to find it on their own. Otherwise, they won't trust it. You got to do your own research.
Do you think it's, again, going back to a little what John said, and not necessarily the maxis in particular, but going to that same mindset of, what's legitimate out there and what's not. Do you think a protocol, like Podping, do you think that adds a lot of legitimacy to what Hive is? Because now no longer are you talking social media. Now no longer are you talking tokens and financial and all this other stuff. You're actually talking base layer infrastructure and protocols that are serving an industry, if you will.
I think that it's a sleeping giant in terms of because we could get to the point where we turn around and there are 15 independent podcast viewing apps, and if we get them on board, if we get Getter, I mean, I have a standing via my friend in the UK who's quite big on Getter. I think he's by far and away their largest account. I have a standing invitation to have a call anytime I want with Jason Miller of Getter. Now, I'm waiting. I haven't pulled the trigger on that because what I want is I want the live notifications via Podping on Hive to be solid. I want there to be 3 or 4 apps that show them. And I want to go to Getter and I say, look, don't try and keep everything within the walled garden. You've got one little tiny app on my phone, okay? And I don't really like the app. I'm kind of, it's not my favorite place. But my podcasting app, I live in that. If you have anybody on your site that I'm interested in, I will subscribe via a podcasting app. And every time they go live, I'll see it. You have to Getter, Rumble, all these independent sites. You have to have the imagination to understand. Stop trying to be another Facebook. Stop trying to be another Twitter or YouTube. Work within open systems, open platforms, and Hive at the base as a censorship resistant way of joining these things together. And I think that Hive can provide the comment systems later, and we can do all sorts of stuff. I hadn't had the time. One person promoting Hive to the whole podcasting 2.0 thing. My T-shirt says podcasting 2.0 certified.
That's my next question too.
I was going to say John wants one.
I was going to say, I have it written down. Where do you get those?
The No Agenda shop actually sells them. Though this one actually, I got this one delivered. I won't say for free because I've actually donated quite a lot of money, value for value, to the podcasting 2.0 thing. But the T-shirt was in recognition of services rendered.
If they have a hat, a baseball cap like John has with podcasting 2.0 on the back, he'll buy a dozen of them.
I'll send you a link. I think it's noagendashop.com. They're stocking the podcasting 2.0 stuff. But this is, we've got to get away from the idea that I'd never want another Facebook or Google or YouTube. I never want another one of those to exist. I do not want them to be replaced by some right-wing Gab version. It's like nothing. I want something back to. Do you remember the old internet when we were all on different bulletin boards all over the place? There was one for cars that I liked. I was into that, but everything was separate. It wasn't these megalithic, monolithic sites. I like the idea, and it's community based. It's where's your community that you want to interact with, and don't have it owned by the man, the Zuckerberg, the Sundar Pichai, or even Elon Musk. I just don't want there to be mega sites.
Yeah, you have a mega chain, and then you have many different sites that feed into it. So, it's like, can you imagine a day when Hive has, 300 front ends all reading the data on Hive?
Well, I think that day is going to come sooner than we think. I think the tokenization, the stuff that 3Speak is doing. I mean, then there's this whole thing about what goes on in the background. Where do you store all this stuff? How do you incentivize that kind of storage? That's that's another big deal. Sorry. I think we're closer, and us having the account system, the account structure, it's a very, very big deal. I mean, I never imagined when I replied to my friend after he said you have to really hate the Romans to join the PFJ, and I wrote back, now write it out 100 times or I'll cut your balls off. It didn't even cross. Of all the things I've ever said on Twitter, that wasn't the one that I thought, I'm skirting close to the line here. And then I get this thing saying this is a palpable threat. You're going to cut somebody's balls off. Go on. But that's the point. And like right now, with my Hive Lightning Gateway, someone sent me a link to, is it what, tip in, tip in,
tip you,
tip it, tip in. And I'd forgotten that I'd signed up to this some time ago.
Right,
unfortunately, it's Lightning based. It's linked to my it's linked to my Twitter account. I can't access it. I wrote to them. I said, how do I get into my account? I know I've got one. I can't log in, and Twitter won't let me. Duh. Never ever link anything to those people. Shall I talk about 222 and how the Hive Lightning thing is going?
It's great.
So how long do you see this notification system? You said that you're on Thursday on Adam's show, you're going to give a test run. What's your time frame on how you're going to roll that out? I mean, are we looking at a month, 2 months maybe of testing? What are your plans with it?
Well, it's already been in testing with the Podcasting 2.0 show, which is every Friday. Adam and Dave do the show that talks about the developments in Podcasting 2.0. And then there's been a few other of shows of generally fans of No Agenda who have also tried out the live item. But No Agenda is the big one because there are so many listeners to that. And I think it's ready. It's kind of ready. There's a lot of, we've probably got a lot more documentation that needs to be done. I want to explain to the Vim guys how to use it. I'm particularly excited about them because they've got a live-based product and live video. It's a no-brainer for them because they've got the familiarity with Hive and all of that. I think within a month we could usefully see some other big shows going out live and doing their notifications via this. There are 2 apps at the moment, but that can be expanded very quickly. There's about half a dozen core Podcasting 2.0 compliant apps. Up until now, Podcasting 2.0 apps, the bit that's been the sexy bit is streaming sat. So while you listen to a show, you send 100 sats a minute or 30 sats a minute to the show, or you hit the boost button, which sends 1,000 sats and a short message. And I've done that to you. I've listened to your shows, and you will have seen little packets of Hive arrive. That's all working for all the 3Speak shows. Hasn't been promoted enough on 3Speak, and that's my fault because I'm doing all these other things. But I think once people start to understand that, I'm hoping that the Hive Lightning bridge part, and I'm seeing a lot of uptake now, and I'm seeing new users use it, which is every time I see a name that I haven't seen before, I like that. And then they always try it out, 3,000 sats, 4,000 sats, and then, a few hours later, 80,000 sats. That's $30-$40. People are buying pizzas. The thing that we did for Bitcoin Pizza Day, that worked all over. I couldn't believe the videos on Twitter, all over South America in particular. It seems to have quite a lot of uptake. You can go into your local pizza parlor and pay with Lightning. And what that means is, and now I managed to get the camera thing working in my little app. So if you open it in the Hive keychain browser, you get a camera, you photograph a Lightning invoice, you press pay, you pay with Hive, Lightning gets sent. What could be easier? And I'm hoping also over the next few months that I'll talk with Studkev and the guys at Hive Keychain, and I want to talk with the Ecency guys and Peak D about building some of this Lightning functionality into Hive products, because the Hive keychain in our browser, I can show them the way to just pay Lightning invoices. So you can be on any website where Lightning tipping is allowed, and if we build the right bits into Hive keychain, it will do it all for you. It will say, do you want to pay this Lightning invoice? You'll pay with Hive. Lightning will get sent. You'll get a bit of change back. It will be seamless. You won't need, I don't want people using this sort of horrible review website that first Ozbitbank built, and then I modified it, and I hate JavaScript. I hate it. But I want that to be a proof of concept. And the proof of concept is that Hive and Lightning can be used interchangeably because they're both ultra low fee. I'm taking a small fee, very, very small fee. I can't make it free because I don't want to give people the idea that it should be totally free. But it's always sub 1%. Excuse me. So it's the idea that we've got the back-end infrastructure with Hive to just seamlessly work with Lightning, and then a guy like me is going to take care of the horrible complexity of keeping these channels running.
Well, the only thing I wish you would do is, instead of saying Hive, you focus it on HBD, because I think that's a tremendous use case. John's been in their stuff. They're starting to incorporate, I think, HBD into some of what they do. Of course, iPay does everything. But, I think HBD is really something that is a feature of Hive that if we can get use case developed, we can get core value to HBD. So that will help to avoid the Luna situation or the UST situation where there was really no utility to that token.
Correct. Well, look, Podping does that. I tell you, by the time the No Agenda show alone, by the time that's doing its live notification, you could almost justify the entire infrastructure of Podping for that one show. If we get Vim using Podping, we've already got 3Speak using Podping. We've got Transistor.fm, RSS.com. All of those people are using Podping, and it's doing something that they would now miss if it disappeared. That gives utility to Hive. That gives value to HBD. And yeah, I give people the option. They can swap Lightning into Hive or HBD, and it's roughly half and half. They can send me HBD or Hive to buy their Lightning. I'm seeing roughly 50-50 of people using it. It just depends. So I see them as interchangeable, to be honest. But I agree with you that there are going to be many use cases where people will get they'll pass Lightning around, but they'll want to pull it out and put it in a stable, a stable value. They don't want to be exposed to the
Mhm.
the Bitcoin price fluctuations. And I trust HBD even more following the Terra Luna collapse, because having seen what it takes for a $42 billion thing to collapse, and then you look at it and you see our little tiny HBD versus Hive, but we're doing it the right way round. We've got the utility of Hive backing a true algorithmic stable. So I'm agree with you. I think HBD is the sleeping giant for us. Liquidity is the issue, but
Mhm.
again, that's why I quite like dealing with these smaller sums, Lightning to Hive, $50, $40, $50, and like one of our perennial problems is how do we onboard new people but not get bought? To me, the answer is simple. We have to charge $1, $2, $3, whatever it is, for an account. But the only viable way to do that today is Lightning. You can't ask someone to pay in Hive to get a Hive account. That's not going to run. And Lightning is starting to be the small cap, the small payment item that you can get. I mean, America, it's very easy. You've got multiple ways with a debit card to buy $10 of Lightning economic, without getting crucified by fees. And so I think all the bots and all of the abuse goes away if you charge $2 for an account. And that's fair. That's fair value.
I wrote a post a few weeks back. I think we should charge $5, 5 HBD for account, or the equivalent of
I
5 HBD. However you get in there with stats or whatever, fine. But
exactly.
5 HBD or whatever, and
It's value for value. If we value it at zero, everyone else will value it at zero.
Yes.
Now, the value for value proposition is that you give something away and you tell people, send me back how much you value it. But I think in this instance, when something can be botted and gamified, we need to charge for this, because if we set a zero value on it, that's people will not value it.
John,
No
on your
brainer
end,
for
are
me.
you finding more people using HBD for your stuff?
It's almost exactly what Brian said. It's 50-50. I mean, we have a lot of people. Well, people started using Hive Pay to buy their listeners upgrades using Hive when Hive was higher. So now that the price of Hive, they're sitting there going, well, I got to pay more Hive to get the same subscription. I'll just switch to HBD. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of that where people are canceling their subscription and saying, I'll just go with the stable coin and call it a day. But Brian, I got a question, man. What can we do? What can helpless souls like myself who I still can't even turn on my computer some days. What can we do to help this pod paying value for value, everything you're doing? What can we do other than voting for the proposal and stuff like that? But is there anything we can be doing?
I think, and I'll have to talk to you offline. I've got to put some more effort and time into explaining value for value to podcasters, and showing them which tools are available to tell their audiences, hey, you can listen to my 3Speak show. You can listen to it on Podverse or CurioCaster on the web, and you can stream sats that will get converted to Hive, and I'll get Hive. You can fill your wallet with 10,000 sats, which you've got from your HBD. You send a little bit of HBD, you put 10,000 in. And the thing I like about these wallets for listening to podcasts is it's like limited. 10,000 sats in a wallet, $2-3. I'm happy with that. I would not give like I said, I can't give my Hive active key to a piece of software to send, one Hive a minute, because I'd be scared, because I've got $50,000 sitting there behind that. Can't do that. But putting 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 sats in a wallet, that's the cash in my back pocket. It's the at-risk money. So that's the stuff. And I've got to look at what you're doing, and maybe you can have people pay. You already accept HBD and Hive. You can accept sats if you want, because you'll get them. I'll show you how to put a QR code on the payment page. and to you it won't matter. Maybe there's parts of your audience that will more easily be able to get Lightning because they live in North America. They've got Cash App on their phone. They can just do a $10 debit card transaction and get some Lightning. So I can see a lot of the front ends for Hive and Ecency and so on starting to build this in. And you'd be amazed, but I said this on the Block Trades asked me which ones of the who's using Lightning out of the big exchanges, and Kraken are the biggest in America that allow you to deposit and withdraw Lightning from your account. They put out a tweet like after a month and a half or 2 months that they'd done like 5,000 transactions or something, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? Is that it?" I mean, I do dozens, sometimes 100 transactions in a day, and Kraken, really? So we on Hive, we're doing thousands of transactions all the time. Every click, every like, it's all transactions. If we start to build in Lightning, and we start, because we're already we're kind of we're generous with other people's money. We click like and we give the inflation to people. But I think it's one step beyond there to say directly reward creators. And that's the direction I want to go. I want to be paying for the stuff I consume directly. Me to the creator. No middlemen, no 30% to YouTube, none of that stuff. Lightning, Hive, these are the ways to do it because they're the first reasonable micropayment systems we've ever had on the internet. There have been many attempts. But Lightning looks like the one that has the scale. And what I like about it is it's sucking in a shit ton of venture capital money. And we all know how evil and horrible that is. But I do like the idea that we can subvert and use it. So their investments, we will just use. And with just my little code running on 3 or 4 or 5 different sites, suddenly we have linked Hive to the multi-billion dollars of investment that's going into Lightning today. And it's our way of subverting that. I just want to say one thing about the proposal. A year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I was working pretty much full time with my brother-in-law. We have a company in Israel that imports computers and now does surfboards and other stuff. And I slowly backed down from that. And the DHF fund, when I get funded by the DHF, I started off just coding, a couple of hours a week. The DHF means I could back down from full time with my brother-in-law. He's running it. It's doing okay. I don't get a salary from that. I actually now pretty much exist on the DHF. It has been a massive revelation. It's been a joy. It's added enormous joy to my life. I much more enjoy writing the code, getting it working, making people happy that it worked, building this stuff. And I'm eternally grateful. And I consider the DHF and everybody who votes for these proposals to be my boss. And I want to tell you what I'm doing. I want to make you happy with delivering products on a regular basis. And it matters. It's not just the money. It's the entire way in which I feel there is a community that wants these things. Now, I said this to Block Trades in a message. I said, it's not that I'm building a business that's uneconomic. I think there will be a chance to make money from doing these small conversions. But I don't think that there is an economic way to have spent the money to build the software. Because I don't foresee this being a multi-billion-dollar business down the line if you keep the fees small. And this only works because Hive is very low fee, Lightning is very low fee. If you start charging 3% to do the translation, it won't be a good business. People won't want to use it. So I want to keep that friction low. But that means that until the volume is, hundreds of thousands of dollars a day, it's not going to be a sustainable business to then pay for all the development work. But that's the joy of Hive. We've got the DHF to do this, to fund the development work, to build tools that we all want to use in the end, that make Hive more valuable as a whole. And that's the way I view the DHF. It's really, when it's doing things like this, and when it's funding how to do core and Hive keychain and these other core projects. Now, I'd also like to see some other non-techie programming projects get up the list as well. And sometimes they do. But it really matters. What we've done, what happened when we took that Ninja Mind Justin Sun stuff and put it into the DHF, I don't know who exactly is the genius that came up with this. It's a group, but it really was genius. It really is sustainably brilliant.
Community over everything.
Well, yeah, that's, John just hit it on the head. It's like when Matt and Dan went and put their proposal in for 3Speak. Now we know they could afford to, or at least Dan could afford to fund it, but they went in and got it. They said to turn it into a community initiative so they can sit there and say, see, look at what we built without venture capital, where we had a community of funded, and you're doing the same thing there with with podcasts and value for value. It's like, well, this was funded with community funds through this DAO, and look at this wonderful two pieces of open source software, open source infrastructure or protocol, whatever you want to call it, that, like you said, we want to use.
It's really, and the thing is, the numbers are not like the eye-watering. You go out, you go to the VCs and they throw $13 million at some startup. It's not those kinds of numbers, but it's the right numbers for the right size project. I'm not planning to get wealthy on this DHF funds, but I have learned to code again. I'm getting quite good at it. I suspect, if I had to now, I could probably go out and get a coding job in Israel, funnily enough, that would pay me more than the DHF is paying me. But I don't want to, because I like my boss. I like you guys and Dan and the 200 or more people voting for my proposal. I'd rather have you as my bosses than some HR department in Ramat Chayal. I don't want to do that again. I've done that in the past.
Well, what I love is, and this goes to the idea of Web3, and I love that you have John and Blaine and Eliana with their projects, and Blaine's coded them, and he's like you, one person coded. You have your projects, and all of us that hold Hive have a stake in what's taking place. So you say you could go make more money out there by going and getting a coding job. But if PodPing really takes off, if value for value takes off, if Listeners takes off, if any of these projects takes off, our value of Hive that goes up, and all of us are holding a significant amount of Hive. So that's going to be a lot more money than we would make at a job. And that's really the difference. And Brian, you've gone back a number of times to Facebook and Twitter. Not only do you not want to recreate one of them, you don't want to enrich those fools. We want to enrich ourselves.
Actually, just to give you a very quick update, it's been 7 months since our last hearing in the Australian court. We wrote to we did the correct thing, which apparently is we had to write to the Law Society of New South Wales, who then wrote to the court, and the court wrote back to the Law Society, and the Law Society then sent the letter to us, which told us that there would be a judgment from our case last Friday, but we haven't had it yet. So that's what we're dealing with. But we're very, we're very hopeful that early this week we should hear something from Australia on that. But yeah, I want to actually destroy those guys, not build another one of them. And I tell you what, I'm actually getting worried that by the time the Australian courts let us into court, Facebook might not be worth so much money. Google, I think they're sort of more financially solid, but we're, someone else going to take all the money from Facebook before we get there. Sheryl Sandberg stepping down. I mean, really, are they going to fall apart before we can finish suing them? That will be depressing.
Sir, you're always a legend. You're always a legend on the show.
John, I did have a question for you because we've talked about this a number of times. And I think before we end the show, I think it's very important because Brian did mention, on Hive, we click a button and we reward people through the inflation pool. He's talking about value for value and streaming sats and this idea of tipping. CTP has implemented tipping about 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And how's that going? Do you see a future of tipping? I mean, do you think this is going to be big on the internet, John? And then Brian can follow up.
I think that's the future for content creators. I mean, we got a rewards pool. We can set up tokens. That's cool. But if I really value someone, I hate using the word prideful, but I'm very proud to help someone. I do that with what's that? Patreon all the time. There's a bunch of people. I send $5 a month just because I love their content. It comes out of my pocket. There's no rewards pool there. So I think tipping I'm
going to just stop you though. Stop saying tipping. I don't Adam Curry doesn't say this word tipping. Tipping is if you ask for tips, you'll get tips. You'll get 10% or 15% of what you're worth. No, ask for value. How much do you value this content? Send me whatever. And it's worth different things to different people. Adam Curry has said this for a long time and he's exactly right. The thing that Steve Jobs did to the music industry that was unbelievably pernicious was just put 99 cents as the value of everything. Every song, whether it's some crappy boy band that's never gonna last, or Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles, or Freebird. How do you value all of these at 99 cents? No, Eleanor Rigby, there's something that it does to me. It's worth infinitely more than 99 cents. But I don't need to hand Paul McCartney any more money. I mean, he's been rewarded amply. But there are many, and like one of the other areas that we are getting to with value for value is music. And I know that there are some discussions going on with the big. You know how most of the artists work today is that they put their music in a service that then spreads it to iTunes and Spotify and all of that stuff. Well, they'll be able to. This is this is the way it's been built. They should be able to also have an RSS feed that looks like a podcast, but at the top it says categories music, and then there'll be another breed of podcast apps, but they won't be podcast apps. There'll be music playing apps that understand the language of podcasts. And you stream sats. So instead of having your Spotify subscription or your Apple Music subscription, you put $10 a month on your phone and you stream sats direct, no middlemen, direct to the artists. Wow. And they can split the bassist, the drummer, and then the replacement drummer after the first one chokes on his own vomit. They can do all of those splits in perpetuity. And think of this, the way that royalties are divided up, and that at every level of the music business today, there is a cut and a cut and a cut until eventually at the bottom of the bucket, there's this artist sort of getting a penny in his thing when Spotify took $1. And they get paid nothing for streaming. It might be that some wealthy guy is listening to an album of some up-and-coming band, and he's got it set to stream 1,000 sats a minute. That's what can happen when you allow people to value a product how they value it. You don't say it's tip. You say, how much was this worth? And it's the difference between McDonald's and a proper restaurant. The proper restaurant gives you the food and then they present you the bill. But they give you, there's an understanding that you're going to pay what it's worth. Now, they set the price, but it's rather than the fast food thing of, hey, pay $5 and then you can be my extra level subscriber on Patreon. No Agenda Show works on a different basis. It's like most people don't pay them anything, but many of them do, and some of them give them a lot of money. There are people giving thousands of dollars a month to No Agenda, and there are people giving $5 a month. And then there's people streaming SAT. You just got to give audiences the options that match them. And for the first time, we're getting to the place where it's actually going to be technically easy. And if it's technically easier for me to put $10 of Lightning in an app and just stream SAT to the podcasts I actually listen to, that's better than paying Spotify or Apple Music. That's the way I want to do it. I want to reward the artists who deserve it.
This you keep bringing up other points, and this goes back to the article I wrote this morning that I sent to you, John. And Brian, what it was A16X put together some research, and they basically looked at how much each user makes from the different platforms. And Facebook, the average user makes a penny. YouTube, it's like $2. Now, again, this is average. It's not medium. It's not median. So this is average. So they just took the amount paid out divided by the number of users. Spotify, the average is like $600. So I put together a post and I just said, okay, here's what the reward pool is. It's like $450,000 right now. Times it by 52, you get like 23 or 25 million, and then divide it by like 15,000 users. So we get like $1,500 average that somebody is earning off Hive. And what you're talking about there goes right on top of conversations we've had most Fridays about what John and Blaine built with listeners, where they're taking email marketing and totally changing it and making the process of email marketing into it, making that profitable, regardless of whether you sell something or not as a result of your email. It's the actual marketing, the actual doing, because you get rewarded in listeners, you get rewarded with CTP. And now you're bringing up this idea of totally changing the subscription model of music from Spotify and Pandora, changing the podcast and changing the idea of Medium, and paying me $5 a month. And like you said, those guys, even if everybody, or not everybody, but even if they got a decent amount of people send them $5 an episode, that's 200 people. That's $1,000 a show. It adds up.
There was an article going around last week as well, which was basically you need 1,000 fans. If you've got 1,000 dedicated fans, you can do it.
Yeah.
That's it. 5,000. If you can get, but what you shouldn't do is say, I'll only take $5. No, send me what my work value. How do you value this content? Send that. Some people will send $5. Some people will send nothing. Some people will send $150. You don't know till you ask. And Adam always he says, and the number one reason people don't give is because they were never asked. You just ask. Just at the coffee shop I was sitting at today at the beach while my kid was at Sea Scout. To be honest, the guy was hopeless service. 45 minutes to bring me an iced coffee. But when he came to take the bill, he specifically said, "Shall I put the tip on this credit card?" And when presented with it like that, I can't say no. I have to tip the guy. It's like, you can't. He didn't deserve much of a tip, but ask. This is Israel, everybody's forward. But the point, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I will I value my time away from advertising. So any show that doesn't have advert, I value it more highly. And that makes a big deal to me. It's not that because advertising at the end, advertising is a big problem because it leads to censorship. Not sort of deliberately, but it's just we've gone into a world which should never have been encouraged, where advertisers were told that it matters what content their adverts are playing next. As soon as that happened, and it happened actually first from the right, back to the 80s, the moral majority and the big fights over rap lyrics and heavy metal and parental advisory stickers, which every artist used to fight to get on their records because it guaranteed better sales. All of that nonsense has now come around, and now it's the left that are censorious and canceling everybody. But their method of cancellation today is financial, and they go after the advertisers, and the advertisers they just hate controversy. Nobody, I mean, they made a mistake with what was it? It was a whiskey, not whiskey, bourbon, an American bourbon brand. Spotify made a screw up and basically stuck adverts for this bourbon on everything. So they stuck them on podcasts by Alcoholics Anonymous people and children and Christian families and all sorts of stuff. Had this advert for whiskey and of course the brand is horrified, and they've suspended all engagement with Spotify because they don't want to be pissing everybody off. And advertising is get away from.
This is very interesting. John, I want to go back to you simply because you've been in this business for 20 plus years. And based upon what Brian's saying, because, I mean, this extends out beyond what we've talked about, is it safe to say that there is the foundation for a shift in the rewarding of content creation, whether that content's articles, whether that content's podcasts, whether that content is your music, your art, whatever? Do you see a major shift, and how does that change the online world?
It's funny you mentioned that. I've been taking notes, and I just sent a note while you guys were talking to Blaine and Eliana, and I basically said, do you guys want to do something completely crazy when it comes to pricing our products? And why not in affiliate marketing stop saying this thing costs $10 a month, this thing costs $20 a month? Why don't you say,
how much is it worth to you?
How much is it worth to you? How much is our service that, yes, we got to pay server bills, but just like you said, you don't need 10,000 people. You need 1,000. You need 100 people. You don't need this.
You might find some of them will pay $1. Some of them will pay $5.
Yeah.
But some of them might pay $20, and some of them might pay $50. Because if they're making $500 a week, I know I value stuff. It's a peculiar business when you start thinking this way. It really is a change in mindset.
Mm-hmm. We actually did that. Every year here in North America, they do the Black Friday specials and stuff, and we did I think it was last year or the year before, where we set it up. We said, name your price. Whatever product that we sell you want. And there was the odd person paid us $1, right? Yeah. But generally people are like, how about, I'll pay you $20 a month instead of 57 or 47. Sure. Deal. Some people paid us $5. It was very interesting. Just like you said, the mindset and the shift in thinking of, hey, it's not a tip or cost. It's more, what's the value? What's the value you see here? If you see value, pay us. If you don't see value, hey, no worries. No problem. There's other things you can go, do whatever else you want to do.
Okay, so now here's the question. What do each of you think that does? And again, start with John, then Brian can follow up with loyalty. Do you think that increases loyalty?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because it's going back to the whole thing that we always talk about the engagement and the relationship building. If I go to my customers and it's completely different, especially in this day and age with inflation and everything. You go to the gas pumps and it's through the roof. I went to Walmart the other day. They added 47 cents on top of an 87-cent can of beans. Like, this is what we're being nickel and dimed here. So why not take a complete change and say, hey, what do you, the customer, my reason that I'm here, what do you think? Put it in there, and hey, maybe you're cash strapped. Inflation sucks. Well, you know what? Instead of paying $20 a month, why don't you pay us $10 a month? It's your choice. And then, yes, the loyalty that builds, it's not like you got to look at the lifetime of a subscriber, right? Are you willing to take that one-off $47 payment and then they disappear next month? Or do you want that $10 a month for 15 years? I want the $10 a month for 15 years.
You know, look, this does, you know, in my other business of selling a surfboard or a computer that we import, you can't do it like that. But this works especially in the kinds of businesses, you know, content creation. The marginal cost of another viewer is zero. It's like, I create this video. If 5 people watch it or 5,000 people watch it, it was the same creation cost. So, and running a service like Listeners, there's a sort of there is a balance, because there is a per user cost and so on. There is a balance there. So you can't go to the extremes. But with content specifically, it's about that tribe, that community you build around it. And exactly, it's the lifetime average value that someone will give you, rather than what you might make next week. And I really think that they're onto something, especially with these items that are, you know, when you're selling a service that's not sort of paid for by the hour, or you know, that you're going to produce anyway. This is definitely the mindset for it. I mean, you have to take everything. You can't do it with everything. But like, I mean, this T-shirt, I did not send cash for this T-shirt. But anybody who donates more than $100 to Podcast Index gets a T-shirt. I've got a ring. You know, if you give $1,000 to the No Agenda show, they send you I don't have the ring with me. I've got the certificate behind me. It's with sealing wax and a certificate, and you become a knight of the No Agenda show. I am Sir Brian of London, knighted producer of the No Agenda show. I can use this title. I mean, why the hell should the Queen be the only one able to hand those
You, Paul McCartney and Brian of London. Hey.
Yeah. And you know, if the
Paul
Queen
McCartney.
If the Queen wants to come and take my British passport because I call myself Sir Brian of London online, she's welcome. Come and take it from my cold, dead hands, Queenie.
She might be cold and dead before you, Brian.
Well, you know, I wouldn't wish it. She's very nice, but can't say anything wrong about the dear old.
She's very nice, but she's
Queen.
not very young.
She's not. No.
Wow.
Get off my lawn.
Well, this is
apparently she was in Windsor.
And for anybody who's still listening after this show, it's just real interesting that the foundation of this was paid by the Decentralized Hive Fund. It was paid for by a DAO. It was paid out. How does the payout in the DAO come? Does that come in HBD or Hive?
It comes as HBD.
HBD?
And that's very, very important, because it means that you can budget with it. Because I have paid external people and so on. And I think it's hugely important that it's HBD. Now, I have tended to convert most of it to Hive because I have a sort of an innate faith in the future of Hive. Especially when it's like at below 50, I was sort of converting. But unfortunately, I've been unfunded for the last 3 weeks while it was really low. I was a bit annoyed. And what actually happens for people who don't know, when you get funded by the DHF, you actually get an hourly payment. So my last funding was like $10.28 or something every single hour. And it's like, I think back to being a kid, $10 an hour doesn't sound like much, but I do at least get paid when I'm asleep and at weekends. So
it's 24 hours. It's not 8 hours.
It's 24 hours a day. So I have, and I've got some of it in savings, earning the 20% and all that kind of stuff. But, I've been putting most of it into Powered Up Hive.
Anything from the audience, John? It's quiet on what we see
No,
here.
yeah, Vim was pretty quiet too. We had Jimmy in there, but you know how people are. They listen to the recordings here, man. You know, the live streams we get the cores, but
I think we're gonna get more. You watch this. If I can get Vim in the next 3 or 4 weeks to do this podcasting infrastructure and the live item, and we can have people with app Podverse ping, this show is live. You wait and see. I think that's going to be huge.
So, John, Brian's going to make us bigger than Joe Rogan.
nice. Well, we already got 25 million listeners, so we need the 27 million listeners to beat Rogan, right? So.
I think we need about 95 million to beat Rogan. He's pretty big.
He's overrated.
Anyway, anybody sees this between now, well, and any time, go vote for me. I do need a few more votes. Hopefully, I don't know. Maybe Dan will vote soon. I think Block Trades has voted in the past, so I'm hoping to see his vote.
Can you pull it up, John? How close is the proposal?
It was, what was it, 34 million or something? Was it?
No, I think I'm on about 20. I'm about 70% of the way there without a Block Trades vote. So a Block Trades vote would push me over the edge, but we'll see.
Dude, I need some of those guys' votes for my witness. Holy crap, man! Let's go, Wales.
Yeah, I vote for you. I'm pretty sure
I voted for you, John.
I know, because you guys are awesome. You know.
Yeah.
So.
And that's because Blaine threatened us.
He did. Yes. He said he would take all your toys. Yeah.
Blaine scares me.
He's a little terrifying. Yeah.
I've got to go and get a cup of tea for my throat, or actually a whiskey, I think.
Yes, definitely.
Almost out of
the bourbon, so you can piss off Spotify. Hi, Spotify listeners. Dude, it's always a pleasure having you on, man. This was, I guess, appearance 17 or 18 or something like that. But
it's only 4 or 5.
It's not. It's more than that, isn't it? I don't know. Is it 4 or 5? Maybe 4 or 5.
I think it's 4.
He's still in the lead, I believe, John. In fact, I don't know who'd be close.
Yeah. There you go. Dude, appreciate you, man. And everything you do for the blockchain. And looking forward to, helping out. And obviously we'll put the links up for the proposal in the post today. And go vote for it.
And also change. You will not get the question and answer post from John this week, because on Friday, since you wonderful listeners had to endure me and John twice last week, we are going to again. It sounds like Matt Starkers came out of the jungle of Cambodia or wherever the heck he was.
Wherever he is.
Yeah. And he may have legitimate internet. So we are going to try to have him on Friday.
There you go.
Excellent.
All right, gents. Thanks for listening, everyone. And have a great week. We'll see you on Friday. Doodles.
Ciao.
Bye.